I would like to offer my 2 cents, my views on developed models and China-US trade relations. And because in the era of transformation, there's so many disruptions, it takes more than 25 minutes to talk about those, okay? And I offer my 2 cents on those 2 issues. And these views are my personal view. I do not represent the school. And Professor Li Wei, my colleague here, he may have different views, So any wrong remarks, my personal responsibility, 2 issues. The future of development models and ongoing China-US trade frictions. Well, a classification. The way we look at development models globally is a classification into 3 kinds. The first one is neoliberalism. The second, state capitalism. The third, social democracy. Actually, neoliberalism started by Ms. Thatcher in 1979, followed by President Reagan. And this neoliberalism shaped China's reform in a fundamental way. Arguably, the neoliberalism has created unprecedented amount of wealth since 1980s, probably in human history. So that's the beauty side. The ugly side may help generate most serious inequalities, especially in China and the US. These 2 countries have embraced more fully the neoliberalism than any other economies, So in this regard, I personally consider China's new economic normal, election of President Trump, and Brexit as the beginning of end neoliberalism. That's one way of looking at the issue. Well, the evidence are plenty in terms of income wealth inequalities. As measured by Gini coefficient, you can see China and the US probably right behind the Brazil, which has highest number of Gini coefficient, And China-US number far higher than what you see the EU, which I consider more socialistic, So in 2009, when I making a speech in DC, I had a prediction analysis. I said one of the fundamental imbalances globally as maybe too much neoliberalism or even capitalism in China and the US. Because you go to China, and we don't have universal health care. Our education system only covers 9th grade. We don't have unemployment insurance. We don't have a universal pension system. We don't benchmark well against those of Scandinavian countries. We even don't compare well with those of Russia or Brazil. So China succeeded because of neoliberalism. Many of the problems we see in China also because of neoliberalism. For the future, you look at the issue globally. Look at the US and EU. For the US, it's a matter of what's next after neoliberalism. I think the US is divided. You have ideas from Hillary Clinton, you have Trump, you have Bernie Sanders, Definitely is divided. But that's a fundamental issue for US. For EU, it's also complicated. Arguably, there may be too much socialism there. Where you have a competition from both China and both China and the US, the EU may have difficulty sustaining the competition from both neoliberalism blocs. Maybe arguably we Chinese work too hard. Maybe Americans innovate too much. One might argue that way, So 2006, my first time to visit the Scandinavian countries, that's the starting point. I really began to love socialism. I have a lot of empathy for socialism, And at least people trust each other so much. People love each other. You don't need to carry a gun to protect yourself, at least, And then look at the GDP per capita. Look at the great companies they have. So look at the unity of man and heaven. And so, of course, for EU, if they cannot sustain the competition from China and the US, then the rise of populism, unilateralism, many other ideas will find their markets. And if we don't deal with the inequality issue, or diminishing social mobility issue, the politicians in many democracies will have difficulty to find the mandate to support globalization. So there are many discussions about the globalization, but sometimes I think we have not paid sufficient attention to neoliberalism. I think that could be one of the root causes for many anxiety or frustrations we have globalization. For China, issue is more complicated because China has used a combination of neoliberalism and state capitalism. For neoliberalism in China, not like the US neoliberalism has run its course because virtually every sector has been deregulated. But for China, we have many sectors remain to be deregulated. Many miles left, but the challenge for China is the income wealth inequality already so serious, and the environmental pressure. That's the trick. We have so many reservoirs. Of course, we can lift the gates, but we have worries, okay? This is the neoliberalism. And a state capitalism. Domestically, China needs to be more innovation-driven, more level playing field for many kinds of enterprises, even for the Chinese enterprises. And that's essential. China become an innovation-driven economy. So level playing field definitely is a concern. China has a way to go. And how do you have a market play a fundamental role in allocating resources? That's also a challenge. China is still on the way. Internationally, especially the concern by the West about this potential disruptions between the close relation between the state and the business is always there, always there. So the challenge for China is more complex, partly because China used the combination of neoliberalism and state capitalism. It's a challenging task. Australia, actually, there's a beautiful issue by economists, and the economy consider Australia probably the most successful, rich economy on earth, in terms of income inequality issue, in terms of medium income for this middle class, and this is a very interesting issue. I think is one model China needs to look into for its future, So that's one reason I'm here. I'm ready to learn, yes. Well, the second issue I would like to offer my remarks is ongoing China-US trade frictions. China and the US, for the past decade or even decades, sometimes have different views about how to reform, reconfigure the global investment trading system. You can trace all the way to TPP, TTIP, President Obama's time. Essentially, you could consider that creating a new WTO without China, And then China responded by many this experiment, including RCEP, including BRI, including free trade zones in China, the first one started in Shanghai many years ago, So China and the US have different views, there's no doubt about that, okay? And when China and US having trade frictions, even trade wars, the global implications are going to be profound. You just look at the data, you see the significance and importance of these two economies. If you go by 2017 data, the combined GDP of US and China 24%, 15.2%, about 39, over 39 percentage point globally. You look at the economic increment from these two countries, it's over 40%. China contributed 26.8%. So if these two economies having trade frictions, and it's going to be not good news for many, including Australia. But if you look at a more complete picture of imbalance, trade imbalance, it may not be as bad as stated by some of the scholars. Yes, China exported more to U.S. than U.S. exporting to China. But you look at the sales revenue of U.S. company in China, you look at the Chinese company sales in the U.S. market, they just roughly balance off, So it's not as bad as you think, So the trade friction between China and U.S., actually the complications go way beyond trade itself. Okay. The disparities between China and U.S. are well noted. The history, the developed models, the political system, the culture, and even value systems. But the commonality, not well appreciated. I just give you one. China and the US have embraced neoliberalism than any other economy on earth. These two countries enjoyed most source of disruptions than any other economy on earth. Like the three fundamental changes in the past 3 decades. The first one is neoliberalism. The second one is new round of globalizations. The third one is internet. 3 fundamental forces shaping the global economy for the past 3 decades. China, US, ahead of anyone. In embracing all of them, there's plenty of evidence to support what I say. Look at the unicorn companies, and China, US dominate. 343, China, US contributed 75%. For last year, the 22 top unicorn companies, China, US contributed 19 out of the 22. So the embracement of neoliberalism, making China, US economy very disruptive. This could be a problem for many economies I see. You go to Korea, you go to Japan, you go to EU, you look at top companies for the past 20, 30 years, virtually remain unchanged. You look at 30 richest people, virtually unchanged. Look at the case in China and the US. You see a sea change every 5, 10, or 20 years. Okay. So that's a beauty. And embracement of globalization. China and the US are the number 1, number 2 trading nations globally. Behind the EU, of course, but single nation-wise, always number 1, number 2. China is already the large trading partner for vast majority of the economy on Earth. And China and the US have been second largest or largest recipient of FDI for past 2 decades. 2003, 2014, China exceeded the US as number 1 recipient of FDI. Look at top 30 internet-based companies. Look at the dominance of China, US. Top 20, 11 US, 9 from China. Oh my God, So they have a lot in common. But the commonality, not well appreciated right now, complementarities between China and US also not well appreciated, I have many examples on this, I'll give you an iPhone. Actually, iPhone X, not much a difference in terms of ability of the Chinese company in value capturing. iPhone 7, Chinese company got a $5. Look at retail price, $6.50 roughly. Barbie doll, Chinese company got a 35 cents. And at retail price, $10. You look at the rise of Chinese manufacturing, to me, they're all in a sector, what I call non-mainstream. Ties, lighters, socks, sewing machines, And for the past 3 decades or so, all those labor-intensive low tech, heavily polluting. They're being relocated to China. To me, the Chinese manufacturer is more like a domestic helper for the US. I could argue it's the Chinese companies which have made the US great again, not President Trump, by the way, Because we freed American people up, so they can concentrate on highly value-added activities, okay? So President Trump should write a great thank you note during the Chinese New Year. Great help, my domestic helper. Just look at data. Forget about ideology. Look at the data. The data I presented, very consistent across many sectors. We only got one company, got a Huawei technology, which made it what I call the mainstream sector. You can pay people a decent salary, and also you can make a decent return for shareholders. We only got one. What else we have? We got one, but it's blocked by the US. And then in the conversation, I said, look, I have many American friends, and I said, look, what if the China used the same argument or a process to apply to Cisco, Microsoft, Apple, IBM, Intel? Oh my God, you can do the same argument for every company from US. Our whole air traffic control system in China provided by American defense companies. Sometimes there's too much exceptionalism for the US, is what I mean. Sometimes I'm telling them, and then sometimes think from others' perspective, very, very important. I know everybody realizes huge progress made by China by the past 4 decades or so. But we have to realize our limitations as well. This is the data from World Bank. 101 countries defined as mid-income ones in 1960s. Only 13 made it to overcome mid-income trap. For China, we just get to the bridge. Have yet to cross the bridge. Chances not very good, by the way, look at probability-wise, okay. Real challenge really ahead of us, especially when you have rise of AI and robotic technology. If the predictions by many experts, the rise of AI will displace so many jobs, middle class, well-paid jobs, and with rise of robotic technology, the Chinese project undertaking to overcome mid-income trap will be far more difficult than in the past. Our chance of success, which is much smaller than 13 out of 101. We need more companies like Huawei that can pay world-class salaries for workers around the globe, at the same time create decent return for shareholders. We only got one, not so many more. There's a long way to go. The future. To me, this may be the first time in human history we have this multiple ongoing disruptions and transformations. These transformations cover economic models, social disruptions, technology ones, political ones, reconfiguration global trading system, global governance, sustainability, geopolitics. Oh my God, this may be the first time ever in human history we have so many transformations taking place at one point in time. That's the reason why I borrowed the sentence from Dickens a few times. They can be the best of times, can be the worst of time. I really hope China and US and Australia need to work together, especially China and US, joint responsibility to make sure it's best of times, not worst of times, despite we have so much disparities. Okay, the only way forward is cooperation. It's unthinkable. We have a plan B. So President Xi Jinping said there are 1,000 reasons to make China-US relations work. No reason to break it. No. And I said something similar in our forum with the Brookings in New York City. And I said there's no plan B, only plan A to work out different to sit down. Okay? And if I have my 2 cents, I have 12 cents, by the way, and I will not go over that one by one. How do we make this relation work, you know? Well, I have a saying in China, which is very famous in China. I try to view the Earth from the moon, not a bottom-up view. See new possibility. Blue sky, wide open. Not going to be win-win opportunities there. And secondly, try to go beyond national interest, especially for big power like China, US. You cannot be too much unilateralism. It's a disaster for humanity, somehow, some way. A cooperation, not a confrontation. Not a one-way traffic. In a sense, since Renaissance time, many of the crucial issues for humanities, whether technological, political, social, or philosophical, they have been contributed by the West. Western dominance has been there for over 5 centuries. With the rise of China, it's about time we do our share, not necessarily to compete for spotlight. It's the duty of the East people to contribute. And we need to have our Adam Smith, our time, the penicillin innovations, the Google, Facebook, Uber, Tesla type innovation from China, India, and the whole region. Got to be a two-way traffic, not a one-way. For the future, it's important to emphasize on diversity. Confucius has a very famous saying, harmony without uniformity, a harmony in diversity. You have to be different to be harmonious. That's very important. No such a thing as an end of history argument. That is the model for the future, as I presented my view for future development models. There could be new models. There may be better coordination or balance of models across so many nations. There could be high purpose goals, share the future for humanity. That's a very high purpose, as advanced by President Xi Jinping. Actually, it may come from Tianxia, the Asian concept of China, everything under the heaven. So, got to be more global. Idea like that's going to be essential for future of humanity. And multilateralism, more holistic way, look at issues, go way beyond economic perspective, social, environmental, many others. Always try to pursue a win-win approach to be sustainable. Not a win-win twice. Like I read a newspaper, President Trump always pursue win-win. Win once, win second time. Double win, So that's a different win-win approach, okay. It's win-win approach is very important. We would love to work with MBS, and this morning we talk about the possibility of win-win for China, for Australia. I hope our institution can work together, make sure the whole relationship is sustainable, and go way beyond this 利己 in Chinese, okay, so this is essential. Be positive and be constructive. So those are my 12 cents, okay, in terms of how to move forward. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Thank you.